Sending lots of gratitude there and coming back to ourselves if we've removed ourselves. And just drop into your own energy. Remove yourself of any distractions. Sit your spine up nice and tall, coming ready and prepared. Maybe even feeling the crown of your head, the top of your skull. We can bring our dominant hand to just tap the top of the skull here. And maybe even lift and release the pelvic floor. Right? Just bringing your awareness to the crown of your head or the very top of your body and the base of your body, that which grounds you. You can release the hand, sit up nice and tall from the heart, and let's ground together, syncing our energy, our breath together. Relax through your shoulders, relax through your face, and to empty your breath, we're going to take 3 deep belly breaths together. Slowly, deeply inhaling from the belly, allowing your breath to fill wide like a balloon. Allow the breath to travel into the ribs, then into your chest. It's a moon boosting breath, traveling into your throat. Slowing down your breath, allow your exhale to ease out of the body, watching as the breath travels up and out of the body, emptying your breath a lot. Let's do that again. Slowing down our breath, sinking together in your belly, your chest, your throat. For this yogi breath, this diaphragmic breath, this, again, immune boosting, nervous system calming breath. And slowly, slowly exhale. Just a slow, maybe even longer than the inhale breath. Emptying the breath a lot. Let's give ourselves one more deep inhale in like that. Cleansing your breath. And exhale. Coming back to your natural breathing. Maybe even just noticing the body. Maybe even taking a moment to notice your why and why you showed up here. Planting a seedling of intention, maybe a word, a phrase, the first thing that comes to mind, and your why and why you showed up for yourself. Arriving to this rituals for becoming practice, the space we share here together, energetically sharing that knowledge, that higher knowledge that lives within. Come back to that one phrase, maybe that mantra, that why, that intention. We'll ground into that. And if nothing comes up, that's okay. We can just arrive to presence, but a loving grounding act. Allow the muscles in your face to loosen. Maybe bringing your awareness back to the space you take up in the room. Before gently feeling okay to let the light in, you can open the eyes, allow yourself to arrive back here together and sync in this energy we share from near and far.
That was phenomenal. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. You ready to dig in?
Yes, I am. Take us
Let's
through.
do this. I'm so excited.
And before we even dig in, what a beautiful opportunity to open up the chat if you'd love to drop in your word, your phrase, your mantra. This interactive experience, this immersive experience is as deep as you dive in. So feel free to drop in your words, maybe your why and why you showed up. Maybe that's through the branches, through how we know you, or really most importantly, how you're showing up for yourself and what you're being called here from that place deep within.
Love this. I'm typing in right now.
Thank you. Beautiful.
All right. Just a reminder again, chat is open. We are happy to receive what you have to offer in there. So please feel free. Don't be shy. Love this. Here for the peace I gain from Zen Queen Angie. Love. She's amazing. Great. Wow. Ooh, we have a word strength in here. Love. Space to breathe. Thank you. My intention is grounding.
And breathing through that.
Yes. Then noticing a need for breath work and rituals in my body. in the right place. We're here for that. Come through. Here to show up for myself, my mind, and my phrase is consistency. I love this. Thank you for sharing in the chat. I feel like the chat allows us all to kind of share thoughts and gain from one another. And I think that's where we really build. So I appreciate all the shares. Please keep using up the chat while we're talking. We are here for it. I'm excited. Here to find joy and peace. Let's do it. Let's get started. So, we're going to start with rituals. We'll dive into building them, into maintaining them, into resetting them, and then expansion. As we start with building rituals, I think it's so important to dig into what's a ritual. And talk to me, baby. What is, how does this differ from a regular OLAS routine? Talk to me.
Yes, you know, it comes from a space of really feeling, right? And sometimes we can take that for granted, but in reality, what we feel like doing or don't feel like doing is really what controls our life. And so, if we really think about what our feelings and our emotions are connected to, it's connected to our brain oftentimes, and what we're thinking about, and these mental patterns that we've grown along the way, and whether that is helping to propel us forward or not, that's something that we take a look at and we take a really deep dive into in this intuitive and introspective space that building rituals is. So the difference between rituals and your monotonous routines, right, is really that mundane factor, right? And so it's really this thought pattern of the behavior that allows us to move through life effectively and really with all the energy, and allows us to meet even what can be mundane as a really mindful and beautiful experience. It can also allow us to meet those more challenging and uncomfortable practices that we have to get into expand and shift and maintain the body and minds and emotions in ways that allow us the intention and purpose behind it. So it gives us a certain amount of energy rather than taking from us, right? So I can engage in a ritual, and that's something that's giving me life energy, giving me life force and that creative energy to move on, or think about these tasks without their purpose, without their ritual behind it, their intent, their heart-centered devotion behind it. That would a ritual be that would really create energy rather than, again, take from it in these practices. So do you talk to me about grounding rituals? What are some grounding rituals that you picked up along the way, and what brings you to your foundation as far as rituals in your daily life?
That's a great question. Thank you. I think grounding rituals for me, when I think about needing to ground, I think about not being in a great space sometimes and then needing to get there. And so, what I have found over time is breath work has been my greatest grounding ritual because it's the most accessible. And it's that return and connectedness to self and feeling myself in the moment and getting my mind out of my body's way. And that is one of the most beautiful grounding rituals for me that's been extremely foundational, almost to the point where I'm like, I catch myself in that focus point, like being like, oh, okay, I was breathing there. And just like that was on my mind. Those are really special moments. But I agree with you. I think rituals are, it's almost like less about what you're doing, but the intention that you're doing it with, and that like depth that you're putting into it, the meaning, the love, the care for it. What about you? What are some grounding rituals that have helped you that you find anchoring, that are foundational, that are pillars?
Well, biasly or unbiasedly enough, it would be the yoga and yoga in all of its infinite facets, right? All the many branches that yoga is. And from the Western side of the world, born and raised in New York City, which I know you are my native New Yorker sister here. And that's hard to find here in New York. And so I did find through even just going through the gyms and getting into my yoga practice, it was a way to do just that, to get out of my mind and into my body. And in that, I found such this breath of a practice that was able to speak to me a lot deeper than my fluctuating and moving mind that can attach to all of these judgments and things that ultimately can withhold me from my potential and that highest self they speak of so in yoga. And so some rituals I love are to come back to myself. And yoga is more than just a practice on the mat, it's a practice off the mat. So that's even in uncomfortable spaces like being in front of a camera is, right? I have to drop into my rituals. And I love that you said the breath because scientifically, yes, it works, right? I think science is just starting to catch up to that. And that's what I found along the way of self-care, of self-nurturing, and of really finding a space in my career and in my relationships that feel right and feel calming in my body and feel motivating. And so my answering to you of rituals, even sitting in front of me, I have lots of stones here. That's a ritual I think I've picked up as a child, and it's interesting as an adult along the way I've found that I've picked up rituals from way back when I was a kid. So even finding some sorts of meaning in stones to feel grounded in spaces that didn't feel so grounding, dropping into my body and noticing when I feel nervous or when I feel tense, to know in that mindful moment to release the body and to give myself the space to be in that parasympathetic, to be in that calm state, to be in the clear state, to still move expressively with my spirit, even in uncomfortable spaces. So it's really dropping into that heart-centered space.
I love that.
Dance has become a part of my ritual. I can go on and on, but it's a way to really move my body and get that stuck energy out.
I like that. I'm gonna add that to my rituals.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Angie's not lying when she says that yoga is a baseline. I remember it was so good. I remember sharing something with Ange, and her response was like, "What's your yoga?" And I was like, she's on it. I got to get back to that. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
the fire that I needed lit under me. So she's really wonderful. And I believe it wholeheartedly, are great at that. On this amazing topic of building and, well, what a ritual is, and our grounding rituals, what do you feel are some ways that we can start building a ritual if you're new to it, if you are maybe needing, a new ritual to just get into the game with?
For building rituals, I think it's coming back home to a place that feels motivating, that feels maybe creative, that feels anything that gets you, as you mentioned, out of your mind and into your body. Oftentimes, it is some sort of embodiment practice, such as yoga. Something I've also been grounding into since I could remember is journaling. And that's a way for me to be intimate with the mind, right? It's a moment to reflect, and so you're stepping away from the mind and you're able to look at your thoughts with more clarity, or at least that's what journaling brings for me. A grounding ritual practice that I love is even just starting with gratitude and waking up with 1 to 10 things. I end up finding myself writing on and on, even just for the aroma of coffee, so to speak, right? Just the most, what can be the mundane things here and there become the most profound, especially when we really need those grounding practices.
I love that. Thank you. And I agree. I feel like when we are coming to that conversation of building rituals, something that I find really helpful is having clear insight on where you're at right now and where you're going. And I think it's a really great prompt to reflect. I think it's a really great prompt to count your wins and then to have those wins lead you to that next version of yourself. And so I do think, and actually I wholeheartedly believe that in order to build rituals that are supportive, it's imperative that you know who you're trying to become. What is that person? What are their rituals? What are they interested in? What's going to motivate them? What's going to keep them going? And it does take, that kind of self-work to get to these rituals that are going to support that. And so I think when you have that clear view of, I want to be the person that XYZ, you start to dive into, well, that person wakes up at this time, or that person goes to class, or that person XYZ. And you start to not just create like these routines that they would have, but then dive in deep with the meaning behind it, right? The why. This is why they wake up at this time. This is why that version of me needs to go to that class. Maybe it's to build community. Maybe it's to get a start to fill my cup before I have to pour into others in the morning time. But I think when it comes to building, those two things are good to have as foundations as well, that where are you, where are you going, and what is going to help you get there.
But that said, I think, it's figuring out who are you becoming, right? Who are you in the process of becoming? And also what support might you need in that version of you, right? What does that version of you need? What does that version of you exercise in their rituals? So, it's one thing to notice one area of your life that's calling for that deeper support. It starts with that awareness, right? And then that awareness of what that person needs. And so we can even drop into some questions for you to ask yourself, especially as we're starting in the space of foundation and building ritual. Let's ask some questions for you, and we're going to put them in. Mara, if you can help me with that.
Absolutely.
I guess we'll start with who are you in the process of becoming?
Mm.
Who are you in the process of becoming? And what support might that version of you need, or what support might be what you're birthing need, right? What is that one area of your life that's calling for deeper support, and then coming into one small, intentional, meaningful action that can bring you into that state of presence to drop into that support, right? So what does that ritual support system look like? What's a ritual that supports your nervous system, supports your body, and supports this intention? If we can name even one small, meaningful action.
I'm adding all of those amazing questions to our chat right now. They're great reflection prompts, journal prompts. I'm sorry, my love. Go ahead.
Yep, I'm listening.
Oh, sorry. So there are the questions for you. Again, great journaling prompts, great reflection prompts, great prompts if you are in that I'm feeling like I need something new in my life. These are very, very helpful. So thank you for that, Angela. On this topic of building rituals, I'm curious to explore the chat, but what are some rituals that y'all have recently adopted that you're like, this is guiding me, this is helping me, this is supportive, I can rely on this? Your ritual might be somebody else's new ritual, so we want to give room for that to exist. While you type that, I got to turn a light on before you can't see me and we all look like a blurry mess. So give me
Yes.
a quick second. I'm excited to come back and see the chat. So please share some rituals with me. All righty. Like a hint better. Yeah, I'm curious to see what rituals y'all have got going on right now and what helps you and how this helps you, move towards your favorite self. Awesome. So I think just on kind of building rituals, just to kind of go over that clear vision of who you're becoming is going to help build the rituals. Getting into that version of you's mind and all the questions that Angela shared with us, right? Who are you, even in the process of becoming that version of you that you're thinking about, that you're envisioning, where you're like, I know I can do this, I can be this. What support are they getting? What support do they need? Um, and what is calling you into that deeper, presence in your life? I think those questions being answered are going to help you anchor down in a really beautiful ritual because you're literally defining your whys. You're defining why this is important, why you need this, why the future you is going to benefit from it. So I'm excited again. Ooh, we have a ritual. One ritual I've implemented this morning or is morning meditation. Oh, yay. Before the day demands my attention, I start by giving it to myself first. Actually, that is awesome. Happy I can help. To be honest, that is something that I found I needed too. And just to kind of share a little bit more about me, but like I was at a point where I was pouring into everything and everywhere and all at once, all day, every day. And I was not on that list of things. And it felt kind of difficult to find time. I would, trying to figure out how to fit in, time for me, time to refuel in the midst of trying to tend to all the things. And waking up early was my saving grace. It sucked at first. Like, I remember those 5 a.m. mornings, like, or just even like 30 minutes before I had to get my son up. I was like, why am I doing this? It's late. I'm exhausted. And then that turned into, I need to get up tomorrow at 5. Don't play with my bedtime. I'm going to, I need to wake up and meditate. And throughout that time, like I realized that it helps. You don't feel like you're pouring from an empty cup. You feel like you get to pour with, a cup full. So it's really awesome. Do you want to read some of these, Angela? You want me to read some of these?
Let's see, do I get more in? Become the person who allows my inner child to heal, and rituals that have helped me on meditation and immersing myself in nature to allow my mind to become quiet and detached from existing judgments. Listening to what my mind and body need. I mean, that pretty much says it all, right? I think
Absolutely.
it's just hearing a place to listen to the body for once, right? Rather than the mind taking over. Uh, and I wonder what comes after that when we hear, right? It's really being about being able to bridge that gap between listening to what the body calls for and being able to take action, right? So that question of coming back to the why, coming back to really that support system that's going to hold you and listening to that innermost self that's ready to create, ready to become.
Yes.
That's what's going to bridge you there. And so once we get there and once we ground into these rituals and once we realize what this person needs to become, right? I want to be expressive and I might move through my dancing a little bit more and I might ground into my meditations. I might attend to my art a little bit more. We move to maintaining these rituals and thinking about why it's important and how we can maintain it and how this works around our life and how can we maintain it all, especially when the mind feels so everywhere, right? So how do we maintain rituals? How do we keep up with this foundational practice that we're building? Adelfa, do you want to take us through how you maintain and why it's important to maintain these rituals in the first place?
Absolutely. And thank you for that smooth transition. That was A1.
I'm
Um,
working.
so ritual maintenance I'm like trying to figure out all the words. It's really important to me, and I hope for you too, just off the strength that I think of rituals as foundational pillars, right? Like if we're thinking about a house, think about a house. If you're ever on the market to buy a house and the foundation of that house has a hairline crack, they will not sell you that home until that crack is filled. My rituals are that foundation. If there's a crack in them, I feel like my home is unstable, it is unsteady. And it's interestingly enough, something that I didn't realize until I stopped doing the rituals. And then you realize, oh, I'm out of whack and I'm not centered and I'm actually like not doing okay. And so it was interesting because for me, that's what almost like ignited the why behind the maintenance. It was realizing that I need these. I created rituals that really do support me. And so even something as small as gratitude, right? That ripples out into this very massive, like life-changing experience. It literally will trigger your brain to find more of the things that you're grateful for. But those things just became pillars for me. And so the maintenance of them was really deepened when I saw how much I shifted, how much my world shifted, how much my reality shifted when I dipped out of them. And so I think ritual maintenance is important, not just to keep you at your best, but it is grounding, right? I'm someone who travels a lot. My husband travels a lot for work. So even being in different places sometimes can feel overwhelming. And then knowing that you can anchor into your rituals no matter where you are, knowing that if you have that breath, if you have that morning meditation, if you have, a dance class that you can attend or yoga studio that you can attend, those things can bring you back home to yourself. And that's that home that we want to make sure is foundationally strong. And I think the maintenance of rituals is really important for those reasons, keeping that home stable, keeping it built, making sure it's good for you and that you're good for it. Um, what are your thoughts on that? Why is ritual maintenance important to you?
maintaining part. I think it can be one of the most difficult parts, right? Because I think it can be really propelling when you're really grounded and we're searching for any way up, right? And then there's moments, and then when we get there, we fall off. And so I think the maintaining ritual space is really held in normalizing that falling off space, right? And with that, we can come with a lot of self shame and self negative talk and things that really damper our energy, our motivation to want to get back into the rituals. Mm-hmm. And so if we normalize the fact that, hey, life happens, things come as waves sometimes, not everything is the same. If there's right, that one consistent thing is change. And so if we can accept that and welcome the fact that things can change, leave a little bit of room for that. I like to call it grace. I like to call it give space, right? And that starts with the self. And so if we can give ourselves space and understand that there's going to be challenges, one, there's a maintenance of seeing those challenges in front of us. And then there's another space of it of really being able to give ourselves the grace and go with the flows. And then maybe that's an opportunity to shift things. And that'll bring us on to the next topic. But before we get there, I'm wondering, how do you know when it's time to continue to maintain, or how do we know when we even got to the maintenance part?
Absolutely. And great question. Because I think usually I feel like there's a path to this, right? It's like you have this routine that you're kind of like turning into a ritual. You have this ritual that you've created. To be 1,000% honest, when I think about maintenance, it's about what's like my why is I know I'm not going to be good if I don't do this, right? And I'm like, these are my things. But to keep that maintenance going, I feel like the best thing to do is to keep it easy, right? Where does it fit? How can you make this simple for you to come back to? And I say that off the strength that, like Angela said, right there, we flow. And with the flow comes an ebb. And there are days where you don't want to. There are days where you don't have the time to. There are days where you miss your alarm and your whole morning is out the window. But then that's where we call back that maintenance and you go, but I need this. So how do we readjust, right? Maybe I don't do my morning routine. Maybe I'll find a way to meditate in the evening, right? But I do think when it comes to maintenance, what does simplify the process, and Ange, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is having that why. It's remembering that visual that we spoke about before. Who are you becoming? Where are you going? Where are you headed? Because if that vision is strong and clear, and that's the version of you that's guiding your current self, the maintenance feels like, absolutely, I'm going to wake up and do this. I'm going to wake up and be on a full cup before I tend to. I'm going to go take my dance class. I'm going to go do this. But I do think the why behind the ritual is what makes the maintenance flow really easily.
I agree. It's the coming back to the foundation. Naturally, I agree. It's coming back to the foundation. It's coming back to the why, right? And that's what really allows us to prioritize things and keeps us maintaining things. And it doesn't have to be this big, okay, I'm going to set 4 hours off to paint. I'm going to set 6 hours out, right? We love to think big and think expansive, but that maintaining part are the small, meaningful actions that really end up building and creating, in essence, exactly that's the creation part of the becoming, right? We are actually embodying this practice. We are actually embodying that which we want to expand into. And so with that, we think about how this relates in our life, the ways that we can do that, right? There's different exercises in terms of seeing how they fit in. That can look like those things like time blocking. It can look like holding space for the self. But if we're keeping this in mind at all times, then that's the energy that we're moving through. The consistency is going to build over time, and essentially we end up embodying exactly who we want to become. It's a way to keep connected for us. I know for me, when I'm grounding into these practices, that's what allows me to stretch out of my comfort zone.
Mm. I like that. And your thought actually reminded me that presence is so massive in maintenance. And I think you're right, right? Like it just shows up when you show up. And I think you kind of realize you're like, oh, I've been doing this for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I go in class for a minute. Oh, I've been meditating for a minute. And keeping that up, I think, as the more present that you can be, again, the more fruitful, the easier it'll become.
More intentional, the more desirable.
Yes, absolutely. Just like a reflection prompt for that, or what practices can you implement to stay committed without pressure? I think that last part of the question is really key because when you're in a pressure-filled environment trying to do these very intentional things and things like rituals that are foundational, the pressure will absolutely like destroy the desire, right? If you're feeling like you have to meditate and you have to do this, the why doesn't really feel as deepened. So I do think adding that, what's your thing without pressure? How do you stay committed? For me, it's as simple as like setting the vibe. It makes it feel pressure free. It makes it feel like I can just show up, and that makes me feel like I'm there. So, something to just reflect on as you're thinking about rituals, as you're thinking about what ritual you want to build for later. What does it look like with no pressure?
So we drop that in the chat. Feel free to share.
Yeah,
Right. And I think that's the whole point of the maintenance, right? This is where it becomes you. This is where it becomes more of that embodiment practice. This is where things feels more supportive to who you're becoming rather than this performative state. And so I think really being able to come back to that why, to drop in with those small, meaningful practices. I'm wondering what comes to you guys' mind.
love that. Yeah, share some practices you feel like you can implement with no pressure. These, again, are so helpful as you never know when your ritual is gonna be somebody else's moment. I love this. I'm so excited. I think the maintenance part has been the most key throughout all of my shifts. It's like, how do we maintain? How do we keep this house strong? So I'm excited to see what everybody has to say. While they are typing, our next kind of topic here is resetting. And it's something that I'm really, really excited to talk about and share. Before we do, though,
I do want to share one more thing before we move on to reset, right? It's a moment of coming back to the presence and that's how we can come back to respecting what the body's speaking to us. And so if the day doesn't feel like getting up and going to the gym or going to do our daily meditation the way it felt like doing yesterday, the maintaining piece of it really comes from not this discipline factor of having to do it anyway and drop into the routine, but really moving from a place that feels embodied, that feels encouraging, that feels right in the system. And that's showing up to, okay, if I need a rest, then I'm going to take a rest. And then I'll reapproach this ritual. And then maybe I'm seeing that the body needs rest over time and I'm incorporating more rest into my daily ritual practice. And so when we think about resets, and maybe that's a smoother transition into the reset, right? Is when we continue to maintain and we're listening intuitively and we're giving ourselves grace to refocus and reshift, right? Listening to ourselves. How do we know when we need to reset? Because maintaining it is really just resetting over and over and over again. Every day is a reset. Every moment is a reset. I'm taking reset moments throughout this, every opportunity to drop into your ritual by staying present. And that's able to stretch us and become. And so, if we're thinking about what practices we can implement without the pressure, oh, do we have anyone in? How would we move into how do we know when it's time to reset? Or what does a reset look like?
thank you for that and bringing us into that. Something that you said is actually really important for the reset, which is flowing, right? And kind of being aware of, again, where you're at. And so, for those of you even looking for practices, I think reflection is a no pressure practice that you can engage in. But I think it's also what lets you know where you're at. Does the ritual work anymore? Is it something that needs changing? Is it time for a reset? And that flow, I think, leaning into the flow and leaning into the ebbs, reminding yourself that like we're going to be up and down, but it doesn't have to shift you. It doesn't have to define you, I think is really important. And when we're thinking about resets, I completely agree with Angela, right? A reset can be a massive throw it all out the window. We're doing a reset. We're going to start fresh. But it can also be a reset in the moment. And so we can do a reset right now together. We can take some grounding breaths. So let's give it a try. See
Of
how
that.
easy it is. It's just,
Forgiveness and flexibility.
oh, yes.
Intimidating, not gonna lie. Maintenance is intimidating, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I agree, Ashley. We're with you. Let's have a quick reset moment. We are nearing the end of this, so I'm sure we all need a little breather. But go ahead and sit up, front of your sits bones. I'm just going to do some quick breathing. We'll do some box breathing. For those of you who know, it's four inhale. I mean, woo, it's not four inhales. You're inhaling for four, you're holding for four, exhaling for four, and holding for four at the very end. I'm going to guide you through two of those so you could get a vibe. And then I'll let you intuitively do the next two. So, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and soften the gaze, close your eyes. Sitting nice and tall, elongating the spine. Go ahead and release any air that you have in your lungs. We're going to start fresh, even that, allowing that moment to be a reset. And then we're going to breathe in here for one, two, three, four. Hold, two, three, four. Release, two, three, four. And hold, two, three, four. Let's do another one just like that. Go ahead and breathe in. Two, three, four, and hold. Two, three, four. Release. Three, four, and hold. Two, three, four. Let's take these last two intuitively. See where your breath leads you as you inhale for four, hold for four, release for four, and hold for four. Beautiful. When you're ready, you can go ahead and bring some movement to your body. Let those eyes open. Maybe do a neck roll here. Some shoulder rolls. So even something like this, our box breathing, our neck rolls, our shoulder rolls can be a reset moment. Why I rely on breath work so much is because, again, while it's an automatic thing our body's doing, when it's intentional, it is that powerful and it can feel like a reset. And so I think that that is just something to know that you have in your back pocket. If it's a day, if it's a morning, if it's a moment, go ahead and step aside, take a breath. Sometimes that's the thing that shifts everything moving forward. On the topic of reset, there is also the massive reset, right? We've all had those moments. Some of you are probably in here because you need a reset. Some of you, are probably feeling called to that right now in your journey. But these reset moments can sometimes feel like friction. It feels like it's not the meditation isn't doing it for me, right? Or this version of breath work isn't doing it for me. This class isn't doing it for me. And it's not that that's a bad thing. It's not that it's a wrong thing. It literally just means that you're either growing, maybe you're in a new place, maybe you need to redefine the ritual. Maybe we need to zhuzh it up. It can be as simple as that. Setting the ambiance can be the reset for it. But when we are thinking about resetting, having the reflection piece of that along with that visual, right? Where are you going? That's where that who are you becoming kicks back in. When you have that, if you are aligned with that, you'll have a clear definition, or not a clear definition, but like a clear cue on going, I think we got to shift this. And so I do think, sorry, I'm like reading my notes here. I think what is actually needed for a reset are those two things, are having your clear vision and also just being honest. I think when we're not honest about the fact that there's friction in your rituals, we tend to fall into that, what's the word you said? Discipline, that disciplinarian maintenance vibe where you're like, but I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do this. And then you don't realize that you now don't like this thing, you know?
And
So
we also step into that judgment, right? And with that discipline can come judgment. And that doesn't necessarily move us out of the stagnant energy, judgment, and shame, right? Just be holding space and holding the concept of even a reset on a mind makes me want to sit and take a deep breath, right? Wait, I need a reset. And it brings us back to the maintenance and brings us back to our foundation. And a lot of this foundation has come from presence, right? It's coming back in just a moment to, in the moment, check in with the self. Where am I holding on with tension in my body? Right? Can I let go through my belly? Where do I feel stagnancy and where I am now and where I want to go? And these are moments that are triggers for us. They're moments that speak to us that we can, that it's a moment for a reset. However, to get to the reset, right, and it's noticing, when do we need a reset? How to know when it's reset time? How do we actually reset? What's needed for my reset? How do I integrate a reset into my body? And that's when we can come to baby steps. We can come to easing the body right here and now in those moments that feel uncomfortable, coming back to the intention, coming back to scanning the body, coming back to reflecting, and really coming back to our purpose and the intention. And that's a super grounding way to re-energize the body, to take your steps back into your rituals when it's time for that reset.
absolutely. I love that. And I'm gonna just breathe extra life into the reflection piece of that and the baby steps piece of that. Because I think when we are actively reflecting, right, that becomes clear. And I think you are more aware of those physical cues, your mental cues, even your inner dialogue, right? How that shifts when you're no longer interested in what you're doing. So thank you for bringing that up because I think that's extremely important. And for those of you who are in the midst of a reset right now, that too, excuse me, can feel overwhelming. And so baby steps are super key in that, to not lean into that like I have to do this, right? And getting into that shame spiral that that can lead us into. When you're taking these baby steps, if you're resetting with something completely new, not necessarily diving into the deep end and using that as a moment to deepen the gratitude. How can we be grateful for like the tiny things that we're doing that are building these foundational rituals that we're going to be using and needing, or the future us is going to be using and needing? So yeah, I think
And I think there's another side to reset, in which speaks on the time for rest, right? Sometimes a reset means a rest. Sometimes a reset often looks like stepping away from what we've been doing in order to come back to. And so it brings me to think, when's the time that you stop showing up for your rituals? When's the time you stop showing up for what you've been compassionate for? And what got in the way? What's been some blockages that have stopped you from showing up? And how can we meet these obstacles?
I love that. Um, and I'm going to add a question to that, but like what are some of your cues? I'm really big on that too, where the more that you're aware of what your cues are, all of this stuff becomes super cakey, very easy. For example, for me, when I need a reset, my inner dialogue is bananas. Like I usually go from being really chill to being like, get out of my face now. And as soon as I hear that, and I'm like, oh, something's up. Something's not right with this, right? Because you don't usually feel this way, and that's okay. But like, let's meet ourselves. Let's figure out what we're doing, right? What's getting in the way? What are we needing right now? So I think that's a really, really great question and a great prompt. Just a heads up, by the way, all of the questions and prompts that we're asking you here is it's going to be in the recording for you to view after, but we'll also shoot you an email with all of these really beautifully formatted so you can have them for your own usage. Someone shared in the chat just now, though, task avoidance is a huge cue for me that I need a reset. Yes, Rebecca, I am with you here on that one.
And I wonder what that looks like, right? Like, when do we know when we're being overwhelmed and when they're spiraling, right? It's usually in those moments that we come back to and say, okay, I look like I need to reground, right? I need to be here now and tune in with my body.
Resetting, task avoidance, what does that look like?
Yeah.
That's another great thing to think about. Something that I just do in my work that I recommend a lot is really getting to know yourself through these cues, right? And so again, the more that you understand exactly what Angela was asking, it's like, what does that look like for you? What does that look like in your body? How does that shift your day? When you're aware of that, it's almost like you can't unsee it. And that's going to obviously shift and change as you grow. However, getting to know even a hint of that is going to be really helpful, not just for your reset, for your maintenance, for your new building, and even for your expansion, because a lot of the time the reset can come from expansion, right? It's not always an ebb or a flow, or it's not always like we've lost the love for it. Sometimes it's I've outgrown the ritual. I've outgrown this person that I was, and now I'm expanding. I'm kind of breaking through this. And so that kind of leads me into our next topic, which is expansion and it is growth. And that's another one that I absolutely love to talk about because I think we've all had those, we all have them in our own way, but the feeling I think is the same, which is it's almost like literally wearing a shirt that's too small for you. It doesn't feel good. You're trying, it's not fun. You can see the potential, but it's not really in the room with you. And that's great. You know what I mean? I think we're used to hearing or feeling like we're not in a good place when we feel like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I think another way to view that, if you're reflecting, if you're meeting yourself, is have I outgrown? And that can be with anything. Is it time to expand the friend group? Is it time to expand, the community ritual? Is it time to expand the class? Is it time to expand XYZ? And I think a lot of the cues that you'll notice when you're in that, and I'd be curious to hear in the chat too, like what are some cues that you're like, I've outgrown this old reality and I need to build a new one. To me, I think some of those cues can literally just feel like you're doing the things and they don't have the same effect. For me, at some point, it was like I had one person whose meditations I would listen to. And then I got to a day where it was like, okay. I was like, I don't want to feel like that. It's supposed to ground me. But I realized, like, okay, you've outgrown this, right? You've encompassed this. We can move forward. When I was able to approach it through that lens, I was able to see, okay, well, we outgrew this because of XYZ, and I'm looking for something more like this. Find you a new meditation person, find you a new yoga teacher, find you a new journaling prompt or format. Um, but those cues again come in handy when you are aware, when you're reflecting, when you're going, oh, well, I'm here, I'm trying to be here though, and that's not fitting. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts and on expansion and when you've been in those situations, you're like, yo, this isn't for me anymore.
I think it's exactly as you're mentioning, it's those icky moments. It's really it can be those triggering moments. It's the times when the body and the nervous system is really on a rise. It's when you said we feel kind of small when we're feeling more expansive. We can feel stuck in those moments. And so, really, it's those moments when we're feeling uncomfortable. It's a really good sign to come back home to these rituals. It's a really good sign to be safe in the practice that reminds us of our mission, reminds us of why we're here and what we're here to show up to do, and brings us in that safe space in terms of propelling the body forward with clarity. And so if we're thinking about the space of pressure and all these things, that's what we feel in the body. And so that's where the ritual practice comes in to realign you and to move forward. So it's in those uncomfortable moments that I find that that's my work is. It's in those comfortable moments that I know there's more practice, there's more ritual that's calling to me. And then in those moments, I know that this is where I build. This might be where I'm resetting. This is where I'm realizing, okay, I haven't been maintaining, I need to maintain. And this is where the embodiment practice really comes in. And so those resets are constant, right? That's why we practice this. That's not just a one time on the mat. It doesn't just look like yoga, right? That looks like showing up for your work. And maybe we've looked at our jobs and said, this is really uncomfortable, but we have to know what's expansive uncomfortable and what that really calls for us to show up as. And this is where the rituals come in. We come back to the self. We come back to the things that move the spirit and give us energy. And we come back to the rituals that support who we're becoming, who we're really here to show up as, and how we want to relate to everything in our life. I love what I mean. I'm hearing struggles and substance abuse, and it brings me to my why, right? It brings me back to my foundation, and it comes to why I'm here to show up. And it brings me to leaving even uncomfortable, icky feelings like showing up and being seen and being in front of camera, in front of who knows how many people. And that's my work to show up as. But I know that's involved in being a guide and holding space for others. I know it brings me back to my foundation of what's got me into this work, which has been healing. And so when we think about the triggers or why, the stuff that makes us uncomfortable, that's our work to come back home to and to really transmute that stuck energy into what we're birthing anew. Mental wealth, our emotional health has been huge, and that's my why, and those can be triggers as well, and we expand from there.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And those of you in the chat, thank you so much for sharing. That's really appreciated too. And something that you made me think of, Ange, is that there there's a reflection moment that can happen with your expansion feelings because sometimes they're really similar to our reset feelings. And so you can feel that friction and that discomfort and realize, ooh, maybe I need to reset the rituals, right? And then we go into something, maybe again, for me, it's the smallest, like, I want to set the ambiance before I meditate. It's not that I'm done with meditation. I need some incense. I gotta be in my zone. I want to be outside. I gotta figure out a new way to do this. And then there's expansion where, again, that shit just isn't working. Like I'm trying, I've tried I could do it in every way. It's not happening. And that will let you know we have to reset completely. Maybe there's time for a new ritual. Maybe we invite something new in and we baby step that. And then we reset in that way, right? So just things to think about when you're in your expansion phase, when you're resetting too. Again, your reset could feel like your expansion, and it may not even be all that. It may just be we've been sitting in the same seat for 7 weeks and we got to face a window now. And it's as simple as that. So keeping that in mind to relieve a little bit of the pressure, but also to make it exciting, right? Like if you're feeling like none of my rituals are working, I gotta juice this up. Let's make it fun. How do we sit here and look at this and go, what can I invite in? What does that look like? What is future me sitting there going, oh, I can't wait to do this? And looking at it through that lens as opposed to like, oh, I'm in this really tight space. I gotta outgrow. It feels so uncomfortable. Like allowing yourself to acknowledge that this feels uncomfortable. This feels gross. I don't want to do this. What do you want to do? And looking at that through that lens of true, like rose-colored glasses, beautiful light. And I agree. Somebody in the chat wrote, when their ritual feels like checking a box instead of serving them, Rebecca, that is real. Feels like, oh, I got this done, as opposed to, oh, fuel, you know? And again, that feeling is uncomfortable. It's not fun when the ritual feels like, all right, crossed it off my to-do list. Let me share it so everybody knows I did it. It's not a good feeling. But then what would feel good in place of that? We have some reflection questions just on this topic of expansion that I'm gonna drop in the chat right now. These are for you to have, for you to take, and I'll read them out loud as I send them. But if you were already your highest self, what rituals would you keep going? To add to that, something that I ask myself a lot, which is literally another version of this, is if you knew it was gonna work out, what would you do? How would you show up? If you knew you were gonna be seen just how you wanted, what is that? Another question is, where in your life are you being called to expand? You can't get what just doesn't feel good right now. Maybe that's your cue to figure out what needs some expansion. You want to take us through the last two, Ange?
Yeah, another question for that is what practices no longer resonate? right? It's a moment to look like, okay, I need to switch it up. I need to try something different. I need to expand my practices. I need to cut back on some practices. I need to switch them. And so with that comes what new rituals need to be born. It's another great question when we think about expanding, and it's really going through this reset protocol, right? So this is a loving protocol to take with you. Okay, let's go back to the ground and building foundation. And maintain this. When do we know to reset? That's usually when we're being triggered. It's usually in that icky space. And it's usually being called for us to do something a little bit different.
I love that. And something that Angela's saying, which I think is so cool about this work and also just important to know, is that they feed into each other, right? And this will kind of like, we'll recap in this moment too, but that expansion can lead to your reset. That reset can lead you to building a new ritual. Building that new ritual is going to lead you to your maintenance. And in your maintenance, you're probably resetting every day, like Ange said. And so the way that this work is expansive in and of itself is that when you are called to meet yourself, these things just come to light and you are aware of this is a ritual I really like, and I'm actually really dedicated to this, and my why is really rooted and really deep. And so I maintain it. Sometimes we have weeks where shit's falling off, right? And that's very real, and there's no need to feel bad about it, but it is a great time to reflect and go, how can I reset? What do I need to do right now to make this feel good and juicy? And maybe that's doing none of it. Maybe that's resting. Maybe that's clocking out of social media and taking a minute for yourself. Maybe that's diving deeper into community. Maybe that is diving deeper into whatever. But it allows you to be aware of that and know where the next move comes from. Please feel free to add on to any of that. And then we'll kind of recap before we get into our Q&A. And we're just a little over, but we still want to give some time for questions. Let's lead us through.
Yeah, I mean, I think expansion really comes with the vision, as you mentioned. It's really seeing yourself as the highest self, as you want to be, and dropping into what that ritual looks like and how they can show up for that. So if we were to already see ourselves as a higher self, what is the energy being called there? And I'm going to switch it off to you.
Absolutely. Before we get into that really, really quickly, just to kind of go over very briefly, when you're thinking about building rituals, you're almost like your prerequisites for that are going to be your reflection pieces. Where are you at now? Where are you going? As you build your rituals with that lens and focus, what's going to be really helpful for maintenance is being really deep rooted in your why and reflecting, right? Making sure that you are consciously every day choosing this because it feels good, not because you're checking a box, as mentioned. When we are thinking about our resets, understanding your cues, your feelings around it, respecting them, and being honest about them, right? Something's not feeling good, I need a reset. Something's feeling good, maybe I still need a reset. Who knows? Getting yourself in that mode, using reflection as a guide, using your future self as a guide, and being aware of when you need a reset versus when you need an expansion type of reset, right? Let's throw the whole thing out the window. Let's start over. We're expanding, new growth. And in that new growth, again, brings us right back to building. What's your vision? Who's guiding you? What are we doing? So in all of these, they do feed so beautifully into each other. You'll notice how much they intertwine and align, how much that they will be guides for you, how they can be foundational for you and like absolutely life-changing for some. And yeah, that's just a little.
The expansions part, I think it's a loving inner calling for us in terms of where we are. And it's a great space for us to match the frequency of where we're going and where we're becoming. So that can be an inner calling too, right? That expansion into whatever it is that you're looking to birth, then we build a ritual practice around it. And so making bold ask into stepping into visibility in that space. And so really just moving into the future self and finding a practice that's comfortable moving through that momentum.
Beautiful. Thank you. Alrighty, so in a second, we're gonna do our Q&A and I'll talk a little bit about that. Before we get into that, we just had a whole hour of a class. I remember hating school when I was a kid, and now everything time I enjoy something. Like I needed this fucking 80-minute class on it. And now we're here doing this. So I appreciate you all being here. We're gonna come back from all of this information and we're just gonna get started. Again, quick, easy things that we can do. And what matters is the intention behind it. So let's have some collective deep belly breaths together. And so beautifully guided us through some earlier. We're gonna run it back. So whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and sit towards the front of your sits bones, sit up nice and tall. That feels good. Elongate that spine, almost like somebody's at a thread at the top of your head and they're yanking you up there. As we sit up tall, we'll close the eyes. We'll do one hand over heart, one hand right under your navel. And just kind of feel yourself in this moment. Feel that natural breath, that natural rhythm. When you're ready, go ahead and exhale all the air out of your lungs. We'll take a nice, juicy breath in, filling up the belly, the ribs, the chest, and the throat. When you are at capacity, try to sip a little more air in through your nose. And big release. Beautiful. Let's do two more, just like that, breathing deep into your bellies. Feeling that expand all the way up into your chest and your throat. Sip in a little more if you could. And big release here. Now for this last breath, I want you to go back to that intention that you set at the front of class. Let's bring that into mind, bring that word, bring that mantra, bring that why to the forefront of your mind. And as you breathe in, keep that why strong and let that ground you. And a big release. Beautiful. When you're ready, we can flit our eyes open. I want you to give yourself a big thank you. You can say it mentally, you can whisper it to yourself. You showed up to a class on a Tuesday night, you're here. That's amazing. Thank you for giving Ange and I the time and the space to talk to you, to share conversation with you, to hear your thoughts. A lot of you shared in the chat, which I'm so grateful for. And so now we're just gonna open it up. If I get my words right, open it up to some questions. This is a great point to connect with us, to connect with each other. If you would rather ask a question in the chat, we're here for it. If you want to come off camera, I think there's a way to raise a hand. If you want to just unmute, I trust we'll find a flow. But we're here for questions about this, on how to deepen this. Maybe you're working through a ritual and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. Let us know. This is also now the time where if you're like, I'm cool, I gotta peace out. I understand. Thank you for being here. This recording will be sent to you after. But for those of you who have questions, Ange and I are here. We're excited for them. I'm excited to get to talk to you all. So please bring them forth. All of you saying thank you in the space. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for
Yes, I would love to know how you guys are all doing right now, how you're feeling. What's maybe one thing that we're thinking about moving forward in?
before anybody leaves, and this is my question to you all. I got questions. What is a ritual that you feel like you can leave here with? And what is something that you are leaving here with? Maybe it's not a ritual. Maybe you're like, oh, I know what a reset is now. I know what expansion is. So questions for y'all. What are you taking from this? And also, what ritual are you starting? I'm gonna drop myself in here because and I think a few other people talked about dance, and I was like, I love to dance, and I don't make enough time for that. And so I'm leaving here not just with a boatload of information and love, but I think I'm gonna pick up a form of this as a ritual, and I'm really I love that.
I'm here living with the opportunity today with the ability to show up, right? That courage, that space that it takes to get through the uncomfortable. I think that's the part that really bites, right? And we can be in maintenance, we can be in ritual, we can be in spaces, and then we know when there's a reset and we know when there's expansion happening. And so the expansion can feel really uncomfortable, and that's when we know, okay, small, meaningful steps. And they love that they said it should seem really easeful, but sometimes it doesn't feel as easeful, right? Sometimes it feels kind of trying, and that's that expansive energy that we were talking about, but it should feel encouraging all the while. And that's to bring you back to the why and your foundation.
I love that.
Definitely adding breath work back in. Okay.
Yes, it is okay to drop rituals if they don't serve you. Hi, Risha. Thanks for being here.
Yes.
Outgrowing a ritual without feeling shame and reflecting on what my future self would want. I love that. This is beautiful.
Paying attention to my cues and when I need to reset is one, and also adding more controlled work. Mm-hmm.
Love,
Ongoing process, right?
right. I love that. We're also here for questions. So if anything needs maybe some clarifying, if you've got something you're working on, you want to deepen it, we are absolutely happy to connect on that. So any questions you have, please, however it feels comfortable to share them.
Do you have any rituals for dreaming? I do have rituals for dreaming.
Hey, you're talking to the right people. Uh,
Yeah.
Angela, let you handle this one.
With dreaming comes sleep, right? Deep rest. That'd be a ritual for deep rest. Deep restful sleep, and that doesn't just start from right before bed. Sometimes and oftentimes that starts from the morning. And so when we think about how the body is scheduled, and when you think about circadian rhythms and all of that, or going with your natural cycle, when the body gets tired, it's time to really listen to that and slow down. There's certain teas that can emphasize your dreaming and emphasize sleep, from chamomile tea to lotus teas and the sorts. Um, and really beautiful practices that slow down your nervous system, parasympathetic soothing practices or somatic practices. That starts with breath work, right? Some breath works like square breathing can slow down your nervous system. Some breath works like fire breathing can really amp up your nervous system and get you really energized. And that's the beauty and library of breath work. However, there are certain practices and yoga practices that can slow down the brain waves and bring you into a deep state of rest and ultimately bring you to the state of dreaming. So if you can practice a nighttime ritual, so to speak, that'll bring you into dreamland. Of course, a diet that'll bring you into dreamland that supports lively foods. Magnesium also tends to help that as a vitamin. And another practice would be to journal your dreams when you wake up in the morning. Uh, uh, your dreams are here to tell you something. We understand that is what goes deeper beyond the subconscious. And so listening to your dreams as they are here to tell you something quite usually, and give us a point of reflection for ourselves as it can relate to our lives as we live it during our waking hours.
I love that.
How
See,
about how about your recipe for dreams?
you know,
What's your ritual?
um, yes, Veronica, thank you for being here. Have a great night. Um, Ashley may get to your comment in a second. You know, it's hilarious. And literally what I was gonna say is I'm so glad you answered that question. I was literally gonna be like, Kate, ask your spirit team for clarity through your dreams and knock out and hope for the best. Which is honestly something that I do. I talk to my spirit team and I'm like, I need some clarity, use my dreams. Sometimes it works. Other times it is much deeper and it does start when I wake up and what my day is feeling like, the intention. Sometimes it's my nighttime ritual. Magnesium has been huge. There's another herb, and I feel like I'm blanking on the name right now. For some reason, like mugwort is coming into my head, but I don't know if it's that. When I find it, I'll add it to it. But I've tried that and that was really helpful. But I have found that meditating before bed has helped me get there. If we're being transparent, I smoke, so I don't dream a lot. And so when I do, and I'm trying to get that clarity, or I'm trying to maybe access dreamland in a more intentional way, I will shift everything I do before bed. It's shifting the intention, it's shifting not just what I do, but how I do it and why I'm doing it. It's settling, it's finding breath, it's finding some time to meditate while I'm laying down, really dropping in, and yeah, honestly, hoping that it comes through. But yeah, that's what I would suggest for that. Bianca, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Risha, all good. Thank you for showing up.
My spirit team.
It's my stereotype. I love that. Listen, call on them. That has been life-changing for me.
My
Uh,
mind out of my body's way. That is the practice.
yes, I love that. Absolutely. Ashley, thank you for joining. Do we have any more questions?
And we can even invite maybe a word that you're feeling or leaving with.
Yeah, I'd
Other
love that.
than that, I'd love to hand off to, or I'd love to know how the people can keep in touch with us, how the people can keep in touch with you.
Absolutely. I'm gonna pull up our screen because we've got some of it written. Okay, perfect. Here we go. So with me, it's funny. Stuff isn't here. Okay. Angela's
Oh, no.
website and Instagram are there. So I'm gonna let you lead and then I'll share all my stuff after.
Okay, awesome. I am Angela Powe. Again, you can reach me at my website, equalityyoga.com. And you can also reach me on Instagram at Equality Yoga. You'll find my mindfulness based 101 seats. You'll also find yoga classes and sound healing throughout New York City and beyond there.
Absolutely love.
You, Mar?
I'm going to type in my personal Instagram and architecting rituals. So I created architecting rituals literally because rituals have been life-changing for me. And so we wanted to make it a lifestyle. We, as in me and all the people that live inside my head. That said, there is my website, there's my Instagram, there's the other Instagram. Same deal. You can find a portal in my website, which is a membership for people to access a library of written guides, of meditations, movement, also access to community events that I host virtually, things like Journal Club, things like Friday Rituals, which are happening this Friday. Please feel free to show up. All of my community events are affordable and they're meant to bring community in. So they feed into each other, and the base of it is to build rituals with community and keep that going. I also do one-on-ones. I do yoga and breath work. All of that information is on my website. I'm very active on social, so you can feel free to reach me there. I love an email. My email is everywhere on my website, on my Instagram, and I'm literally like, I geek out. I sit there and I'm like, an email. So send me an email. And yeah, I'd love to connect further. Angela, somebody wants to come to your classes. Ashley's
Brooklyn Girly, we welcome you.
we love it. Angela's a beautiful teacher. Please make use of her classes, of her work, of her efforts, and her energy. I'm definitely available. And this class was birthed with the love of rituals and the desire to make sure you all leave here feeling like you have information again, but that you're also like, what are we doing? What's our ritual? How are we getting in touch with ourselves? And so we hope that you have left here with that. It's my last request from you all. I promise I'm going to ask nothing more, but leave us with a word, something that you're leaving here with, a word that is just like
Be
pop.
a ritual, it can be one meaningful action. What are you stepping into? What are you leaving here with?
As you all are sending us that, because we definitely want to see it, we want to share it, we want to feel it, we want to combine all our energies and help you absolutely manifest this ritual in a way that feels good and easy. So please feel free to share that with us. While you do, we can multitask and have a moment of gratitude. So I want to share my gratitude to you all for showing up. If we count today, you have done some breath work. Angela guided us through a mini meditation. We learned, you took a class, you did all of this in an hour and a half. And that to me is beautiful to spend some time here, to be here, to receive us and the work that we've put into this. Sorry, I'm rambling. My other bit of gratitude is for Angela. Angela, thank you for this, for planning, for prepping, for meeting me a gazillion times and going over zillion million more times and for putting your heart so deeply into this. I love you. I love who you are and what you bring forth. And I'm so glad that everybody here has gotten a glimpse of your juice and your power and your goddessness. Thank you for sharing this space with
Yeah.
us clearly.
It's a pleasure to hold space with you too, to see your brilliance, your radiance, all the things I met years ago. And somehow we've stumbled upon being a big fan of each other's work in the mindfulness space. And it's amazing that the universe has brought us through ritual to bring us here together. So it's awesome to hold space for each of you all showing up for yourself. And this, we're all in this together. Building community is all that this is about. So it's awesome to be able to hold space again from each of you from anywhere in the world, from different space and time, so that we can come together in this ritual that is holding space for who we're becoming.
I love that. Thank you, Ange. I appreciate you. And she's not like that. Ange and I was like 18 together and then reconnected 10 years later. It's like red string theory for sure. Meant to be connected. I want to share some of the words and things people are taking, but I see gentle resolve. These are so, y'all are so beautiful. Reset without pressure. Somebody Kate is taking trusting my cues that I need to expand. Yes,
Remembering who I am, alignment, trust.
yes.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you all so much. We will be sharing just a follow-up email with some of the prompts, with ways to reach out to us with some more of our offerings, and of course, this recording for you all. Thank you for being a part of it. Otherwise, me and Ange would have just been on here solo having a whole conversation about rituals to absolutely nobody. So the space could be nothing without you all being here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not be the last you see of us. So we'll shoot an email to you about the next class. And thank you again for being here.
And keep in mind the live events. We'll also be doing some live events in person, bringing our yoga magic together as it relates to mindfulness, all the creatives, all the rituals that we've embodied and bring to you here.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in tonight.
Thank you. Have a great night. Be safe and enjoy tomorrow. Dig into those rituals. You've got this. All right. Bye, everybody.